Now, first of all, I'd like to invite Rotarian Betty Jo Parent to come to the podium and briefly address the club on Rotary Youth Exchange, creating ongoing benefits. Betty's also on the host organising committee for the upcoming convention in Toronto. Sorry. Betty was on the host organising committee for the convention in Toronto. So please, would you like to come up, Betty Jo?
So thank you very much, President Adrian. I do want to put a little bit of caveat before I start to also say I was a Rotary Youth Exchange student in 1979-80 to Swansea, New South Wales, here in Australia. So a lot of what I'm talking about today for just 3 minutes is about that. However, I had an absolutely incredible year, and I actually just came back for it was supposed to be my 40th high school reunion 2 years ago. I was literally leaving for Australia the weekend COVID shut us down, and so they let me pick the date. So last Saturday was my 42nd high school reunion of the kids I went to school with in Australia, and obviously had an incredible year. So that said, thank you, President Adrian, for this quick opportunity. I'm pleased to give you a really good news story and an example of how Rotary Youth Exchange truly builds peace. Sorry. Yep, thank you. As mentioned, I had the best possible exchange in Swansea, New South Wales. It's been over 42 years, but I have not lost any of the excitement or the gratitude that I developed being a Rotary Exchange student. So, and it's for the wonderful Rotarians in Swansea and also in my host club, in my home club in Whitby, Ontario. Now, I could do a whole full-length presentation on Rotary Youth Exchange. I promise I won't, because I only have another minute. However, instead, I want to show you a 90-second presentation of how Australian Rotarians over 40 years ago planted that seed in me, a seed that opened my eyes to the needs of the world and fueled my fire to meet these needs. Now, this story starts in early 2020, and of course, all the world's news were flooded with the horrific images of the bushfires that you were experiencing here in your beautiful state and beyond. So as Australia is still my second home, it broke my heart. I was president of my club at that time, and I asked my Rotary Club if our club would donate $1,000 Canadian to Rotary Australia to help with the relief, as there was obviously a call for help. And I have to tell you, first of all, my club gave 100% approval for that request for $1,000. The following week, I was going to a district president's meeting, and I asked my district governor if I could speak to all the presidents to see if other clubs would also like to donate to Rotary Australia. Now, I got that opportunity to make that appeal. I'm now going to show you a 90-second video that I think Joe is going to tee up for us, and to show you the results. As you're watching this, let me just preface, this video has actually been created for our district to show the benefits and the power of the Rotary Foundation. But as you're watching this 90-second video, what I want you to keep in mind is this is Rotary Youth Exchange in action. This is a seed that was planted 40 years ago, and how Australians 40 years ago have benefited Australia now. So I'll pass it over, and thank you very much for having me today. I will give you the verbal rundown of what happened. Our district came up with $16,675 Canadian to donate to the Rotary Australia. Then our past district governor, one of our past district governors said, wait a minute, we need to make a project out of this. So they were able to contact 2 Rotary clubs in East Gippsland. And those 2 Rotary clubs each donated one donated $30,000 US, and one donated $7,000 US. Keeping in mind, we had donated is equivalent of $11,340 US. We then went to our district, District 7080. Our district matched it. So now we had our 11,000, their 11,000, and the 37,000 that came from the 2 clubs. From that, we took it to the Rotary Foundation and said, we have a project here. We eventually got $35,000 US from the Rotary Foundation. So our total, where what was originally my ask to my club for $1,000 Canadian, ended up being a project for East Gippsland of $95,150 US. That's all because of Rotary Youth Exchange. I'll tell you, it's a powerful program, and thank you for all the support you've given it over the years. So thank you.
Thank you, Betty Jo. I think Joe's just going to try one more time. I know we all love technology in this room. Here we go.
Many of us heard about the disastrous bushfires that impacted Australia. Rotary Australia World Community Service appealed for help from Rotarians around the world. In District 7080, Rotary Club of Mississauga West, led by Betty Jo Perron, appealed to clubs to consider donating funds to Australia Rotarian relief efforts. What started off as a small ask became a global project. East Gippsland in Victoria was one of the hardest hit areas in Australia. Through a community needs assessment, the Rotary Club in Australia identified where funds were needed to help improve farming methods, to better deal with drought conditions and ongoing mental health support for families most devastated by the fires. Led by the expertise of past District Governor Doug Vincent and the Woodstock Oxford Rotary Club, the original $11,340 US that was collected by District 7080 clubs ended up becoming a project of $95,190 US. This was through district designated funds, fund from Australian clubs, and the Rotary World Fund. Educate. To learn more about the Rotary Foundation, visit the district website or speak to your club's foundation chair. Support the Rotary Foundation, which has a 4-star rating on Charity Navigator, and donate to the Rotary Foundation Annual Fund today.
There's a lot of serendipity, I think, at today's meeting, because I'd now like to introduce to the club visiting Rotary Foundation trustee Larry Lunsford. Larry met with a few of us earlier at the Rotary office to hear about some of our own international activities with the foundation and possible future opportunities. Larry, would you please like to come to the podium to update us on the Rotary Foundation and why you're currently visiting Australia?
Well, thank you, President Adrian, and it's a pleasure to be with you in Australia the day after Melbourne Cup Day. I should start by saying that Jill and I, while we did not come to Australia for that purpose, we did attend the Cup yesterday. We stayed relatively dry, and I think we're happy about the net contribution we made to the Australian economy yesterday. So that can give you a summary of how the day went for us. It's a privilege to be one of your trustees of the Rotary Foundation, one of 15 of us around the world. And it's a privilege equally to serve as vice chair of the trustees this year under the chairmanship of your own past Rotary International president from Australia, Ian Risley. So it's a real pleasure to be teamed up with Ian to try to lead the cause this year. I wanted to make mention very, very quickly that we're making tremendous progress in spite of a few slight road bumps with our efforts toward polio eradication. And it's really something to be here in the first meeting of the Rotary Club of Melbourne in the month of November, which is Rotary Foundation Month, to bring that reminder to you that our #1 corporate challenge, of course, is eradicating polio. It is the plan of the world, friends, that by the end of 2023, there will be no more polio cases around the world. That is the global plan at the moment, and we will do Rotary's strong part, won't we, in continuing to achieve that. I wanted to make mention of the growth of another of the areas for which Rotary is in our DNA, and that's our efforts toward peace. And of course, you would know that your great country holds one of the 5 partner universities for our Rotary Peace Center's master's program at the University of Queensland, right? And recently, your foundation trustees started a program over the next decade to 2030 to try to establish 4 more regional peace certificate, 1-year certificate centers around the world. We have one of those in Thailand. A couple of years ago, we just opened a second in Uganda. And we're in the midst right now with a working group of selecting our 3rd of those 4 1-year certificate peace centers, which will be in the Middle East or North Africa. We're down to 3 finalist universities. And I think our working group team actually was finally able to travel to those 3 universities and do site visits. So one of the tasks that Ian and I will have in January at our next trustees meeting is to hopefully receive the recommendation of that working group, and we will establish then our next Peace Center. And to think that now we have over 1,500 seeds that we've planted with these Peace Fellow alumni, I hope brings you a positive feeling about your Rotary membership and your Rotary experience. And then I finally would just say regarding the projects that President Adrian put together a very nice group that we did have a chance to meet. I'm following Betty Jo here, and she's talked about a wonderful project. I was very pleased to hear of the significant nature of your connection as a club, not only to this local commitment, but to the commitment of Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation. And we're happy to be partners with you in those projects and in those causes. And I hope that you'll just keep the cards and letters coming, as we say, keep the projects coming, and keep us just as busy as possible. Because as trustees, our task is to cheerlead the fundraising, create the right kind of programs that we can spend that money, and then steward and invest those resources very well. Let me finish this wonderful moment in time for Jill and I by sharing why I'm standing in front of you today. President Adrian mentioned serendipity. You're about to hear the same thing that you just heard from Betty Jo, because 40 years ago, I was a Rotary Foundation ambassadorial scholar, a beneficiary of our Rotary Foundation at the University of Newcastle in New South Wales, Australia. So it's quite a thing, and I guess as I acknowledge Betty Jo, I would just simply say, friends, that's just Rotary. That's the way it is. And so it's a pleasure to be back in Australia. We were here to be trustees representatives at the Canberra conference that was just held, but this is really a tremendous full circle thing for me for 40 years to have been a beneficiary of the foundation, and now to proudly stand in front of you great colleagues as a trustee of the Rotary Foundation. So thank you for a few moments, and I encourage your continuing work through the Rotary Foundation. Thank you.